Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Keeping Austin Queered. My name is Sky and this is episode 9. And today we are connecting through colorful conversations with a very close friend of mine and my husband's. And her name is Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know, it's been a while.
Yeah.
You were actually, so a little short story, you were there when I first got my podcasting equipment.
Yeah.
And we did a whole fun practice run on the kitchen table one night.
Yeah. On the
and
kitchen
we
table.
just rambled on about some topic just to kind of break it in and figure out how it all works and stuff. And I was like super, super excited.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I'm a little bit more put together.
Okay.
It's a little bit more professional. I know how to operate and work this technology and machinery. And so I wanted to have you back on so we can, you know, chat and post it
and
actually.
Keep Austin queered.
And keep Austin queered. So, but today's episode is not to be political, but because I don't typically go in that route often, but you are a librarian.
Yes, I am a degreed librarian.
Degreed librarian.
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
Which most people don't know that you have to have a advanced degree to be a librarian. They think just because you work in a library that, oh, you're the librarian.
Okay, educate the people because that's what we're here for. I knew you obviously had a degree for it, but I'm definitely sure that most people just think, oh, that's just the job I get. You're just scanning books and putting books back and stuff, right? You know,
I don't even get that much leniency with stuff. I usually get, oh, so you just sit around and read all day.
Oh,
like, yes, that's exactly what I do.
People
I just
are
sit around and
terrible.
read all day.
I know.
If only.
But before we get into that, of course, I like to have you introduce yourself and go over some get to know you better questions so the audience kind of, you know, lightens it up and knows who you are. But explain how I know you is obviously through my husband, Jason, because you're his best friend from
20 plus years.
20 plus years. He says, you said 7th grade, right?
Yeah, since 7th grade.
Oh my gosh.
And we are
still
very much past 7th grade.
Very much past 7th grade. So much has happened, I'm sure, in your life, in his life.
Yes.
And you officiated our wedding.
I did.
That was a big, big deal.
I did.
And
I did officiate your wedding.
You nailed it.
Oh, thank you.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
I was when Jason said, this is who I want to officiate our wedding, I was like, absolutely. After meeting you, obviously a handful of times, I'm like, there's no one better that I can think of.
Aww.
So I'm glad you did it. You did it perfectly.
Thank you for allowing me to do that.
And you looked amazing.
Oh, you guys also looked amazing. You guys both looked so handsome on your wedding day.
It was a fun day.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, and so other than 7th grade, anything else about, you know, my husband and your relationship and friendship and how we've kind of blossomed into having our own individual relationship?
I mean, Jason and I started being friends in 7th grade, and we weren't best friends.
Oh, it wasn't like
it wasn't anything like that. So we had mutual friends in common, and we all kind of hung out in the same friend group together. And it honestly wasn't until our senior year of high school that we started getting even closer than we had started out being. Because, like I said, in 7th grade, we were friends. We had mutual friends in common. And so
any sports activities, any like neighborhood, rode the same bus?
No,
nothing other than
Nope, none other than that. Because I mean, Jason did track and I didn't do any of those things. And, and he was Mr. Buck, our senior year of high school. But I mean, we ran in the same group of kids, and, he had his like core, his like core group of friends, and I had my core group of friends. And then somewhere around the end of junior year, beginning of senior year of high school,
magic happened.
Well, my friend group kind of imploded, as they do, as high school groups do. Yeah. And Jason was pretty much the only person that didn't choose a side.
That's my man. That is my man.
And so ever since then, he, the fact that he like stuck with me for that, and, again, didn't necessarily choose a side, but I think was more on my side.
Mm-hmm.
We might have to ask him that later, but it,
and then the rest is history.
And then the rest is history. He helped me move into my first apartment, and pretty much all of my apartments after I moved
like
out.
a good gay best friend,
like a good gay bestie that had a big car. Because at the time I did not have a big car that was good for
capable
moving.
Of adding boxes to it.
Yes, I could get probably 3 medium-sized boxes because I was driving a 2000 Camaro at the time. So it had like a little tiny back seat and a little tiny little like hatch on the back that was part trunk, part closet for me. And, it had 2 doors on it, and that was it. And Jason had his big Buick Enclave, and, had lots of back room and all of that. So
I was like, I need you.
Yeah, pretty much. And he came through, ride or die. And then, like you said, the rest is history. And then,
Well, I'm so happy that you're a part of his life and now my life. And
ditto.
We get to live life now together.
Yeah,
so
we get to do things like this and, go hang out at the park all day.
And you get to come and visit Austin and do all the fun things that we do here.
Yes. Exactly.
Well, let's get into the deep and deeper question here so we can know you a little bit better outside of you being a best friend and a librarian. Okay. So first deep question. You want to go deep or you want to go deeper?
Well, let's start it deep and then we'll go from there.
All right. What childish thing do you still enjoy and why?
I still like watching cartoons.
Okay. Which ones? Are you a Saturday morning cartoon girly, or are you like the late night shows with the
morning cartoons have changed. If Saturday morning cartoons are even still a thing, but
I know Jason still watches Pokemon cartoons.
I mean they're still making like new episodes
of that. Yeah.
So I'm kind of stuck in rewatching Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series,
All
Justice League Unlimited. This is a very hot topic, but in a hot take, but I watched Teen Titans Go. I think that show is hilarious.
Okay. Well, I know there's some cartoons out now that are more like adult like.
Yes.
And that kind of have like a late night kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, it's
I didn't know
like
if
Family Guy that pushes the boundary even further, which like Family Guy pushes the boundary kind of far, but or at least they did.
I love that.
They did back in the day. So I still watch cartoons or at least animated shows. I don't know if cartoons is necessarily the correct word, but like one of the newer ones that
It's not like Looney Tunes, because I used to watch Looney Tunes.
No, it's not Looney Tunes, and it's not Tiny Toons or anything like that. Right. It's like
I get you. It's like the Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I was actually just about to mention the animated Harley Quinn show.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I mean, I guess the one I recently watched was the X-Men on Disney.
Yeah, the X-Men 97.
Oh, that was so good. We burned through. Actually, we still need to work on that. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so stuff like that.
All right. Now we're getting a little deeper.
Okay.
What event, I guess we're keeping in a childhood theme here, what event from your childhood most shaped you to be the person you are today? Any specific event?
We're getting deep. So I'm gonna get deep with you.
Okay.
So something that probably shaped me early on was when I was 7 years old. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother,
Okay.
she had the early onsets of dementia and Alzheimer's. And,
brutal.
Yeah, and all of that. And so she moved in with us when I was 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the crazy story, and again, not to tie it back, but my grandpa, not my grandma, on my dad's side, he moved in or lived with us too when I was in my middle school or elementary school, middle school, and had dementia.
Yeah.
And Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So that was rough. But anyways,
it is.
that's
rough.
crazy how I always say, when you talk to somebody long enough, you'll find
something.
Connect.
That connects,
and we've never talked about this before.
No.
So go ahead.
But yeah, that shaped me because with the early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's, and then she passed away when I was 13. So she lived with us from the time that I was 7 until I was 13. And anybody that has gone through any of that knows how hard it is.
Yeah.
And everything that comes along with that, as far as, caretaking for an elderly grandparent and them not knowing who you are from, 1 hour to the next.
It's brutal.
It is. It's brutal. And what made it even more...
as a child.
Yeah, and as a child. And then what made it even harder on my end, at least that I think, like I said, helped me become the person that I am, is that so when I was 10, my dad got a new job that had him traveling weekly. I mean, he'd leave out on either Sunday afternoon or early Monday morning, and then he wouldn't be back until Friday afternoon, sometimes Saturday morning.
Damn.
And so he'd be gone.
But he has to work. He's working.
Yeah,
he's providing for his family.
He's working. He's providing for the family and all of that. And it was his mother that was living with us. And so that left me and my mom for those 3 years that she was still alive, taking solely taking care of her. So, it was.
Man, that is so crazy because literally, again, it was my dad's dad. And his name's Grandpa Stosh. He was Polish. And my mom was the caretaker for him. And it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't her mom or dad.
Yeah.
But, and my mom had 4 kids and then taking care. And my grandpa was blind, dementia and Alzheimer's, blind. And, he kind of had the anger part and combative and stuff. And man, just to see the going to the bathroom, the bathing, it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
and
crazy.
stuff like that I was doing starting at age 7 or 8. So I mean, I saw a bunch of stuff
very early
on that
kind of quicker to deal with.
That I had to grow up really quick. And so I think that has also affected, or not affected, but that has contributed to how I am as a person, and kind of like my love language is doing things for other people or helping in some sort of way. Like if I'm just, like this morning when we were downstairs and we were cooking breakfast, and I was like, I feel weird sitting here on the other side of the counter. Like I want to be like doing something and helping and not just, sitting
this
here.
This is
like
very eye-opening because no, seriously, I didn't even expect to get deep on this, but we didn't know that we had that connection. I honestly didn't even think that about myself. I'm such a bulldog and just bulldoze kind of through life just to try to get to where I'm going. And I didn't even think about, I'm the oldest of the kids. I know you're only,
I'm an only.
Only. So you're, yeah, but man, that's crazy.
Like that's where the I think the break, I guess, for lack of a better term, came in for my mom, was that it was just me. So and because I had to grow up that quickly, I was pretty self-sufficient
Well, that'll do it. That is definitely a pivotal moment.
And being an only child, like I think people get the opinion of only children that, oh, well, we're spoiled rotten and we're,
not in every case.
Not in every case. And I think that is that because of my grandma moving in with us when I was so young and having to take care of her, that kind of negated that part, because my mom had herself and me and my grandmother to,
she didn't have time.
She didn't have time to spoil me.
No.
So, it was, So like that was, I guess, one
a big one.
One saving grace of being the only.
Oh, yeah.
Of that was, I think, easier.
Yeah.
On my mom.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, we got deep there. All right. Well, one more deeper question. What is something you're glad is in the past, and why?
The first thing that comes to mind is something that I'm glad it's in the past, but I do still struggle with it because this person was such a big part of my life. Is just some of the relationships I've had in the past that have ended because of boundaries that I have set, and those boundaries weren't respected.
Yeah.
And so as much as the most significant one that I miss, not every day, but something will happen and I'll be like, oh my gosh, who would think this is hilarious?
Yeah.
This person. And then I'm like, well, I can't just text him and, be like, hey, I saw this funny thing and I thought of you. But because then I remember, okay, there are reasons why we're not friends anymore, why we don't have that relationship anymore. And I think as hard as that is, it's good that it is good that it's in the past, and it should stay there.
This is blowing my mind because, first of all, I pick these cards for any guest, honestly, randomly. Mm-hmm. I take a peek, right? I don't know what they're going to say. It's nothing premeditated to the show or anything like that. Something that's a little bit more like friendly, of course. Mm-hmm. But they're just picked, and I don't clearly know what you're going to say until you say it.
Yeah.
And this is so crazy. Again, it just ties into talk to people. This is why I get enjoyment in doing this podcast, because obviously I brought on a bunch of different people and will continue. Mm-hmm. And it goes to show that I would have never, maybe somewhere down the line after months of conversation or hanging out, we would have gotten to this kind of point. And I'm sure you're aware of some relationships that have been in my life, but I don't think we would have talked about that, right? So it's just crazy how, again, the commonality that people have, like I always say, that's the whole purpose of this. There's more in common that we have as human beings and people walking through this life than that we don't. This is literally the point of my podcast. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just, crazy that you share that, because I think we all have that. And I have just recently experienced that as well, but for a betterment of like staying in what you need to do to protect yourself. Yeah. And it's not out of, greedy or being greedy, but it's actually at like, okay, this is unhealthy, mm-hmm. and this is what I need to do to make it healthy.
To make it
myself.
More healthy. Yeah. Because that definitely, that relationship was definitely not a healthy one.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing those and getting deep with me and the viewers listening.
Absolutely.
Well, so let's get into your profession. So you said you are a graduated, what'd you say?
Degreed librarian.
Degreed librarian. Okay. Yes. Now, how long have you been a librarian for?
I have been a degreed librarian. I have had my master's in library science since December of 2022.
Okay. So you can be an undegreed librarian. Yes or no?
No.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Okay.
You can be somebody that works in a library.
But you're not officially.
You're not a librarian.
Wow. See, educate the kids.
So
I did not know that. Okay.
So where the library system that I work for, there is a difference everywhere. So even though I have my Master's of Library Science degree, where I am just the branch manager. And that is because I do work in a smaller branch, and my job doesn't require that advanced degree. But some of the other bigger branches in my library system, they do. And that ties into funding that we get from the state and all sorts of other things. We have to have a certain number of degreed librarians.
Wow. Awesome.
So you can be, as long as you have a bachelor's degree of some sort, in my library system, you can be a branch manager, a library branch manager. But until you have that master's degree in library science, you cannot be, you're not a librarian.
Wow. And, why I brought Sarah on and why we're talking about her profession is because, again, going back to being kind of, I guess, would you say it's political? I guess so. It's sort of a political topic, but
it has gotten that way. It's
gotten that way. Well, as obviously on Keeping Austin Queered and for the LGBTQ plus community, we are being affected by book banning and specifically, obviously, representing our community's books within a library for any public person to have resource and be able to get to those books. And so I felt as though hearing from you, the professional, about educating someone like myself and other people that we hear banning books and we don't say gay and all the things that are happening to our community. But I feel like, to be honest with you, a lot of people don't know the sort of ins and outs of that. So I kind of wanted to get your more professional opinion on that. So why did you get into the profession that you're into? Did you, as a young girl, said, I always wanted to be a librarian? Like, how'd you get there?
I didn't actually.
You didn't?
When I was but a young warthog.
I was a young warthog.
To quote the Lion King.
Yes.
I kind of like bounced back and forth on what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be when I grew up. At first it was interior designer, then it was teacher, and then
Haven't we all?
Yeah. For the longest time it was princess, but then somebody burst that bubble for me. So, but I think what got
was
me...
it Jason?
No.
I want to be the princess. No.
You can't be the princess.
He's he's a Disney fan. So.
Yeah. No, it was not Jason. It was actually one of my cousins.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause she said I couldn't be the princess after I turned 10. Cause I'm the youngest in the family. And then when I turned 10, she was like, well, you can't be the princess anymore. Cause I dethroned her, I guess would be the best way to put it. But that's a whole other thing. She was just being a brat. But as I mentioned, I am an only child. And so as an only child, you have to figure out how to entertain yourself a lot of the time. And a lot of my entertainment came from reading books.
Because iPads weren't really thrown in your face.
I know there was no such thing as an iPad.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, or a Kindle or an e-reader or any kind of things like that. You had to go to the
good
library.
Old smelly books.
Yep, you had to go to the library and go and look and judge a book by its cover, which they say you shouldn't do.
But we all do it.
I think we should get rid of that phrase because I 100% judge a book by its cover.
Yes.
Especially now. I can
Especially me. I'm not a reader. I'm going to look at the book, see what kind of font, design, what's attracting me, and be like, okay,
what's the graphic on the front? Yeah.
Right.
Which I can see how that was a turn of phrase in the olden days, in the past, because books
it works as like people in a way, but not like actually books, right?
Well, I mean, if you look at
what's the history of that?
I don't know if it's a history, but if you look at some of the older books, they've got all these very
plain,
like plain, but also ornate covers, that sometimes have, brocade flowers, or they have, some sort of pattern on them, and they're very ornate. They're beautiful books.
Okay.
But they don't tell you what the book is about. Right. It's mostly just like the cover of the book, and then
that would be called a pick me up and put you back down for me.
Exactly. And so I think now, that's part of marketing for, everything basically.
Right.
But if you can't tell what the book is about just by looking at it on the shelf, then, nobody's going to read it. If it's just a, plain-ish kind of cover with the title and the author on it.
So books kept you busy.
Books kept me very busy.
And so you said, I love to read.
Yes.
By the way, this is a little insert here. The only way I got to, the only reason I was reading in elementary school, I'd say, was the program called Book It.
Book It?
Yes. Have you heard of it? No. Okay. So maybe this is a Florida thing, because Florida needs some help on reading, as
we all know.
I'll speak for myself. But it was called Book It, and it was really nice. I guess you had to take a book home, and the school gave it to you, the public school, and you read. Said you took a book home, you read the book, and then you told the teacher you read the book. I don't know if you had to like do a summary on it or something. I can't really remember, but the teacher had this like notebook stack of like almost like tickets to give. And they would give you a ticket, and then they had a partnership with Pizza Hut. And so you would take this ticket and you would go to Pizza Hut, and they would give you a free personal pan pizza.
Yes.
So baby, I was eating those pizzas. I was reading. Maybe I said I read it, didn't read it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wrote a little short story, but I got the damn pizza, and I ate the pizza. And that's how I fell in love with Mario. Remember the old school? They had a arcade game there while you're waiting for the pizza, because we would go in for the personal pan, but it was my parents plus 3 other kids. So they ordered a bigger pizza for the family, of course, but it was their way of like rewarding me.
Yeah.
And then I would get like some quarters and play the arcade games like Pac-Man and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, that's how I got to reading. I don't think I picked up much books after, well, obviously after, middle school, high school, college, but after that, I was
nothing
like,
personal.
nothing.
You're like, I'm burned out.
I'm burned out. Yeah.
Yeah. Which we've seen a lot of that, here recently, which I love this. I was actually just talking about this with a bookish friend of mine that we were friends. We were also friends in middle school, and then we kind of drifted apart, and then we've kind of gotten back together a little bit, and we talk about books and things. This resurgence of reading, of people that they were voracious readers when they were kids, and then they went to high school, they did college, they went out and lived life, and reading kind of gets pushed off to the back burner, and all of that. But now there's one particular book that had gotten them back into reading, and now the weekend trip. I've seen like girls' weekend trips that they just like book an Airbnb and they just like read for the whole time. There's yeah.
Okay.
And like trips to Barnes and Noble and things like that.
I used to love trips to Barnes and Noble. Yeah. I did that too, for the magazines, not for the books. I was doing quick reads on the car magazines and all other things, but I remember Barnes and Nobles. I love that.
Yeah. So
librarian. How you became a librarian? Because
as cliche as it sounds, I loved to read when I was a kid, and I never stopped loving to read. Not to like toot my own horn or, like brush my shoulder or anything, but
brush it. Go ahead, brush it.
I honestly never really fell out of love with reading. Even though, I did it a lot in middle school and junior high and high school. And, I was always trying to read something.
So what type of books did you gravitate towards?
When?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that it does have like
it has like an ebb and flow. Yeah.
Journey, okay.
So, there was one particular series of books that I loved when I was in middle school. They were like Nancy Drew, but they weren't. They had that mystery element to them.
Oh my God. Was it mine? I think the ones I stopped reading, or I loved in, loved in middle school was Choose Your Own Adventure.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't those.
Okay.
It was, cause those were boy books.
Oh, okay.
Not that books have
turn to
have
page
genders.
this if you want this, turn to page that if you want that. I love that.
It gives you
and Goosebumps. I loved Goosebumps.
Yeah. Mine was, oh my gosh, I always forget, but, I think her name was like Maddie or Madeline, or it wasn't Madeline because that's different, but she had this like group of friends, and her grandmother was like this rich duchess or something. And then she had like a cute cat named Snowball, and she solved mysteries, and there was that when I was in middle school. And then, as I got older, it was pretty much anything I could get my hands on.
You did the Harry Potter, you did the 50 Shades, you did all the...
Yeah. The one I didn't do because I was, I thought
Fabio.
Oh gosh, no.
Okay.
None of the Harlequin romances. No. But I did the Harry Potter. I didn't do the Hunger Games.
Oh yeah, that was a big one.
That was a big one, but I think I was, quote, too old for the Hunger Games. And I was also, quote, too old for Twilight when it first came out.
I forget everything was a book. See, again, not a reader.
Yeah.
Everything's a book first and then a movie.
Yes.
Which I'm now learning.
Yeah.
Or have learned.
But then that all very quickly segued into, like you said, like 50 Shades of Grey and other more, other more romance books and stuff. So it's kind of a at the point now. Yeah, it is.
Evolved.
Yeah, it has evolved. And now I think it's all just one big amalgamation. So like I'll read a really good mystery one round, and then the next book I read. Yeah. And then the next book will be, like a romantasy book that's, part romance, part fantasy. Or
now when you're reading, do you actually go to these places like visually and put yourself in that? I always hear people like, once I start reading, I'm just like visually go to that space. And like, obviously you're not there, but you're like mentally transporting yourself to that space and feeling it and visually seeing it and putting it all together. Do you get that sense when you're reading, or is it just kind of like words on paper and you're just understanding it mentally?
Honestly, it's a little bit of both.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So I can do in my mind, I have a problem when they describe people in the books. I have a hard time visualizing stuff like that.
No.
And that's probably just my own brain, because I insert Henry Cavill into every male figure in the book. Like
hello. Why not?
Every single one is Henry Cavill. Doesn't matter how they describe him. If he's blonde hair, blue eyed, I don't care.
Yeah. So Superman.
Yeah. And then, but as far as places and stuff, that I can visualize a little bit better. Like the worlds and the surrounding areas. It's the character development that I have a problem with in my imagination.
Mine is, I can get there visually and I can get there emotionally. I'm a self-help book. I'm a like how to do it better, how to like educate yourself type of books as well. I don't really do the fantasy thing too at all. And then, just, I don't know, just kind of like a easy read, I guess you would say, depending. I don't even know what I would say that I would read, but it's the freaking ADD. It's like squirrel, and then you have to reread, and then you have to go back. I can't keep up with that.
Yeah.
Quick fire round questions that I just thought of. Paperback or hard book or the Kindle thing?
Oh, Kindle, because I can take it with me.
So Kindle,
pretty much
you
everywhere.
prefer Kindle.
Yeah.
New or old books? Do you like the new fresh book, or do you like the old?
I do.
Okay.
I don't like I like the new books because I feel like I can be the one that I feel like with an old book you know like you feel like you have to be careful with it, and I'm like
really the opposite.
That's me. And so with like the new book, I'm like, okay, well if this is mine, then I can make it look like the old book that is on the shelf over there, and it's fine.
Do you use a bookmark, or do you fold the page?
Sometimes a little bit of both.
Okay.
I sometimes use the quitter strips, also known as a bookmark, but like sometimes you don't have an adequate enough bookmark. So this is coming from a degreed librarian, people that say that they don't like dog-eared pages. Finding some of the stuff that I have found in library books, I would rather you dog-ear a page. That is me personally.
Oh, wow.
After finding some of the things that I have found in books that people used as bookmarks.
Can you just give us a little something?
I have
just the most wildest.
The most wildest?
Yeah.
I found a baggie with a
snowflake.
No,
a pill?
No, with a already smoked joint.
Oh,
so it was just like the.
Well, what was that book?
I couldn't even tell you.
Oh.
I couldn't even tell you. It's probably a James Patterson book. No hate. I mean, little hate, but no. But yeah, that's probably the wildest thing that I found in a book.
What about Okay. Well, what's your biggest pet peeve as a librarian working in a... Biggest pet peeve? I mean, I'm sure.
The first one that comes to mind, honestly, is, again, having to do with bookmarks. I don't like the ones that are kind of like paperclip.
Yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
That you put it on top of the page, and then but then once you, especially if you leave it in there for a long time with your book closed, and if it's a library book, it crinkles the page and it makes it look, it distorts the page a little bit. And at my library, we go through all of the books, like just do like a really quick, like flip through scan to make sure that there's not any, smoked joints or dirty pictures or somebody's paycheck. I've found somebody's paycheck in one of the books that was used as a bookmark. And also to, make sure that there's no, stains or...
Yeah, it's like readable.
Yeah, that it's still readable for the next person to check it out. And those bookmarks make it look like the book has been wet. And we don't like wet books at the library because that is how you get mold. And
you don't want mold?
And you don't want mold because then all the books that are moldy have to, everything gets moldy, and then you have to shut the library down and you have to get rid of everything that has mold. And
don't shut your library down, y'all.
No, it's a whole thing, and I don't.
It's like a gizmo. You don't feed it water after midnight; it turns into a mold.
No.
All right. Are you a underliner of specific? Do you underline or do you highlight if you're reading a book that is like, these are noteworthy? I own the book.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I haven't done a full one yet, but my book friend that I was mentioning earlier, she and I are doing a kind of like book exchange where we're going to annotate a book. And then like I'll read the book, it'll be my book, and then I'll annotate it, and then I'll give it to her to read, and then she'll annotate it. And then she'll give it back to me with her annotations.
Okay,
so
that's cool.
I haven't gotten fully into that yet, but on my Kindle, I like to highlight things of like things that made me laugh, or like quippy banter parts like that. So I guess you could say I'm a highlighter because it just comes across as a highlight.
Dark thing. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the topic here. Now, can you give us an overview of the current state of book bans in the U.S., particularly concerning the LGBTQ plus books?
Short, sweet, and to
Short,
the point.
yes.
They are under attack. And it breaks my heart. And I do want to, I don't know if this is on your list of questions, but so there is a difference between book banning and book challenging.
Okay. So what's the difference?
So a book challenge is what we are seeing more and more often here lately, especially in regards to LGBTQ plus books and topics. And those are books that somebody has read or has claimed that they read and found some sort of something offensive about it to them. And so they brought it to their local library or to their school library, which schools and public libraries are similar yet different in the way that they operate, just because of funding and school boards versus, library boards or administrations or anything like that. So challenging a book is, I feel like, easier than banning a book, because then there are banned books in certain places. And
now, can anything be a banned or challenged book?
Yeah.
Okay. So then
Absolutely.
Are they just specifically coming for, are there any other communities that are currently banned or challenged other than the queer community?
Yeah, it's more, instead of community, it's more of topics.
Okay, topics.
So, along with the queer community and all of that, they, some of the topics that have come under fire are, eating disorders.
Oh, wow.
Or at least how they're depicted,
right?
Or the fact that they are depicted in a book. So, for example, John Green's Turtles All the Way Down has been challenged in lots of places because of the fact that there is an eating disorder mentioned in the book. I mean, that's basically what the whole book is about. So
topics of things that are like not, I guess, ideally looked at as like in a good light,
yeah,
really.
Or something that somebody is like, well, I don't want my kid knowing about that, because I want them to have rose-colored glasses on for the rest of their life and not know what is going on in the world.
Okay, so that's where my issue kicks in. Of course, I'm always the person of like, I am staying in my lane.
Mm-hmm.
It's the HOV lane. Mm-hmm. I'm paying my tolls. I'm minding my business. Listen to my music. Why is it have to be something that like you? I mean, what, you're going to read every book and say this affects me, this offends me, I don't want my child on getting a hold of this? I mean, how do you censor? How does someone censor what someone else decides to read or buys or have an additional resource for? Like, it could be said the same for TV, magazines, video games, literally, music, obviously the internet, music, social media.
Yeah.
So, I
think it's because it's an easy target.
Okay.
And that's just me personally. I think it's because media in book form is a lot easier to go after than, let's say, the entire internet.
True.
Or, you know,
you can kind of pinpoint it a little bit more.
Yeah, you can pinpoint it a little bit more.
Got it. Okay.
And again, it's an easy target. And I as a librarian, even before all of that, I don't believe in censorship.
That's part of our rights. So it's almost like,
as far as
I don't know.
a book
To me,
is
it's like the gun thing. Like, if you want a gun, take a gun. If you don't want a gun, don't get the gun. Like, I don't like.
And this is also me speaking as
freedom
someone
of speech
that doesn't have kids, but I feel like as a parent, if there is something that you don't want your child to read because you find it offensive or you don't want them to know about it from a book and you want to be the one to talk to them about it, or it's just something that we're going to sweep under the rug, or, you know, anything like that, that's your prerogative as a parent.
And also parent your kids.
But
be a parent.
But also parent your
You're
kids.
a parent. It's called parenting.
But, you know? But you are parenting your own kids. You don't get to parent all the other kids. So just
parents
because
that want their kids to have the open mind and read and do and see and
exactly and want to have those experiences and
whether they are part of the community or not.
Yeah.
You know?
But representation in all things is what matters, and especially in books.
Right.
'Cause if you read something about a person that is going through a struggle that you might be going through, you know, like coming out to a parent or anything like that, seeing yourself
how to prepare them, and, you know, books help people prepare, and you know, we read in school to learn history and math and science, and books were the way to get us to understand and learn something, and and it's doing the same thing. You know. Now, are there specific themes or topics in LGBTQ plus books that are being more targeted than most? Are there any specifics to the queer community's books, or is it just overall they're just like, it's gay and I don't want it?
It's just it's being gay in books. I think that's the biggest problem. I have seen some that the way that that gay relationships are depicted on the page can sometimes light a fire under some people.
So it goes back to the cover of...
It goes back to the cover, but it also goes into the content of it.
Yeah.
I was on a library, on a book challenge committee that I had to read 2 books by the same author. And the biggest complaint about the books was the descriptions of intimacy but from the main character and all of that. So I think it's more of, you know, like it's okay if you have a gay character in a book, but like as soon as intimacy comes into
people love to pick anything apart.
Yeah, they like to pick and choose what they are offended by.
All right. Well, how do book bans impact public libraries, librarians, and the community they serve? Like, how does that, just not even like, I mean, obviously in the queer community, but just in general, like, what, you know, like, I mean, you were alluding to it earlier as far as like it's censoring knowledge of what is actually going on and for people to educate themselves on. But is there anything else that you feel?
I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing, is that it's trying to take away somebody's right to that information, and I can't even remember who said it, but one of the library, like one of my favorite library quotes is something about that the library is the last free place that people can go.
Yeah.
And
it really is.
And at least a public library. And that's what we're there
and ideally
for.
Like a safe space too.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have internet growing up, and it was a place that was free. I mean, my mom again was young and had 4 kids, and it was a free space. It's hot as hell in Florida, so there's AC and access to reading or computers. And it was just the kind of, again, that free, safe space for people.
Yeah.
What role do public librarians play in advocating for intellectual freedom and access to diverse books?
I think that we do as much as we can within the confines of our jobs, because I can't speak for other libraries or other librarians or even other library systems, but being a public librarian, there is only so much that you can do within the confines of your job without the possibility of ruffling somebody's feathers.
Right, because you're always going to do that.
You're always going to do that.
But you want to still maintain your peace and your job. And
yes, and be able to go home at the end of the day and say, okay, I did this, and I still have my job.
And there's no legal protections, right?
Not really.
Yeah. All right. Well, what can community members do if they find out books is being challenged or banned? So if I'm like, is there anything I can do or say when I'm hearing this, or people are challenging or banning books in my community?
Yeah, you can talk to your local officials. You can talk to either your local city council, or if that isn't getting the job done, the county commissioners. Or
do you think this all falls back on political, I guess, where they stand?
Yeah.
Within your own city, within your own state, within your own, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
yeah.
I think that's kind of with everything else, but it's like, okay, well, your state, I mean, obviously we live in Texas, so it's a red state. Yeah. And if, depending on where you're at and doing, it's either they're going to hear you, but not do anything, or they're going to not hear you and still do their thing.
Yeah. Right? And still do what they want to do.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So if there's anything to be done, make as much noise as you can, to your city council people, to anybody that actually has some sort of dog in the fight. Okay.
That's great advice. Now, how can people support their local librarians in keeping the queer community books accessible? Just kind of
check with your local library and see if they have some sort of library association. Because, as I mentioned, there is a certain realm that we, as librarians and those that work in the public library, and I know school librarians fall into the same category, but that there is only so much we can do within the confines of our job without possibly losing our jobs. But if you have the backing of the community behind you, that's a handful more people that you have standing behind you saying, this is what we want out of our local library. So see if they have some sort of library board, or see if they have a library association, because not only do you stand, if you join an association, you are not just standing with the librarian and the community, but you're also helping that library. Yes. Because part of their job is to do fundraising and other things like that. So staying at that forefront and helping with the money side of things, because as much as we all hate to admit it, money is the currency, and it's part of it. If we don't have money, we don't have funding, and if we don't have funding, we can't continue to buy, these, LGBTQ plus books, or anything else on these controversial topics that some people don't want in the libraries. Do you think, just real quick, and we're about to wrap up here, but do you think that libraries themselves and books, do you think that's like a dying breed by any chance, or do you think that it's evolving into a different form? Do you think that it's still that safe space that I remember as a child? How do you see, books in the public library, as a open public resource in the future? Like, how do you see that evolving? I've said this before, to other people. Libraries are resilient. There's a reason that libraries have been around for as long as they have. And still very popular. Yes. And like I said, the resurgence of people reading is great. I love it. It makes my little bookworm heart so happy, that all these people are, rediscovering their love of reading. But it's a cycle too. Yeah. I think people are done with the stimulation of the TV and the screens and the tablets. It comes back around. Yeah. But libraries, again, I can only speak for my library system, but public libraries in and of themselves are very resilient. They grow and they adapt, and they have. I mean, you mentioned it before. Libraries have computers. Mm-hmm. Libraries have internet.
Yeah, and you told me that they offer so many other things.
Yeah.
Like things I didn't know. Like you can rent a.
Yeah. You can check it. You can. My library system has a library of things. That's what we call it, and it is a library of things. We've got all sorts of things that
like a generator, like a.
We don't have generators, so if anything that requires gas, we don't have because of storage things. But we have carpet cleaners, we have shop vacs, we've got a telescope, we have musical instruments, we have cake pans, and we don't have the KitchenAid mixer, but we have all the expensive attachments that go with it. You know, like the pasta maker and I don't know anything else about KitchenAid mixers, but all the the different attachments that if you can't afford one of the attachments, or if you're on the fence of okay, well how much am I going to use this? Is it worth dropping this amount of money on something that I might use once or twice? Well, okay, if you're only going to use it once or twice, why not get it for free from your library?
And just think of all the people, like I said, even if you're not a reader, I mean, that really opened up my eyes to the sense of like, there's just, your library holds more than just books. Mm-hmm. Safe space, computers, printers, and all the things that you mentioned to me about renting and having access to that a lot of people can't afford or can't, or don't want it full time, and so it is, that.
Yeah. Well, and other things like research databases and stuff, like I mentioned to Jason last night, we have a database in
community library.
Yeah, we have lots of databases in my library system, but I mean, we've got access to Ancestry and newspapers, and I mean, even we've got Hoopla and other e-resources for people to use. So if they don't want to go into the library, which that's another way that they've adapted, which we always had, not always, but we've always done the e-resource kind of thing, but that really stepped up during COVID because my library system, we shut down. They closed the branches for
it feels like forever.
From March to I think May or June. And we weren't letting people in, but we were doing, curbside pickups, and we were doing this, and, there were still people in the branch after that initial 2 weeks. But I mean, we had people, that were using all of our e-resources from home because they couldn't come to the library. And now some of those people I don't see anymore because they're like, I love Hoopla, and you probably won't ever see me in there again. I'm like, well, that's upsetting, but okay. Yeah. But that's one of the many ways that the library has grown and evolved to fit the times that we are in right now, and the economic situation that a lot of people have found themselves in,
and will continue. Well, I think it's amazing. I still think they need to create another Book It program. I don't know if there's one out there to help incentivize people or kids that aren't really, readers. And obviously you need to learn how to read, to get them, get a book in their hand and to learn something and make it fun and, again, incentivize them.
Yeah.
I think
they kind of do in public schools.
They
have the accelerated reader, which has changed a lot since like Jason and I were in school, but it was kind of the same thing that you were talking about. Okay. You read a book, you had to take a test on it. Okay. You had to go to the library and take a test because it tested your reading comprehension and it asked you questions from different parts of the book. And so you got X number of points depending on how well you did on the AR test. And then if you got to a certain number of points, you could, you'd be on the reading team, or you could, use it to, they did, like little like little parties, and they had things that you could like spend your points on. So it wasn't a personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut, but it was.
Come on, McDonald's. Can you put out those fries and those chicken nuggets? I mean, obviously we don't want to, that's not great for you either, but
whatever gets them to read.
Whatever gets them to read.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being part of my podcast. Absolutely. I think it's just so important to inform all sort of these like hot topic discussions that we have, and some people may know about it and some people don't, and how we could continue to support our community and have those resources for people and help support our local librarians and our libraries themselves, and have that safe space to educate yourself on whatever you choose to, and not have that be taken away. So knowledge is power. The more you know.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility.
And like RuPaul says, reading is fundamental.
Reading is fundamental. So support your local library.
Well, again, I love you so much. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for educating the kids and the adults, because Lord knows they ain't reading too much either these days either sometimes. But thanks for keeping Austin queered, and I'll see you on the next episode.
All right. I love you too, by the way.
Love you too.